We're ready for the start. They're off.
A pleasant Tuesday, everybody. Welcome into It's Official. I'm Jeremy Plonk, along with Jeff Siegel from First Bet. Jeff, we are halfway through the month of December, 13 days in as we record this podcast, just 13 days away from opening day at Santa Anita's championship meet and opening day of the big meet at Gulfstream Park for their championship meet, the classic meet it is at Santa Anita. So a lot going on, and we're halfway there, partner.
Yeah, we'll have entries drawn, I think, by the time we meet again next week. I think Gulfstream Park gives us about 8 or 9 days to prepare for opening day, which we'll need. I'm sure they'll have big fields, as will Santa Anita. So looking forward to that. We still have some racing this weekend to look forward to, and we're also going to look back at what was outstanding racing last week as well. So we've got plenty to talk about. And so hopefully we'll make some sense to our listeners and viewers in the next 30 or 40 minutes.
Right. This weekend, we have 2 Kentucky Derby points preps to look forward to. Low South Futurity on the West Coast, Springboard Mile at Remington Park in Oklahoma City. So we'll have a lot to talk about in terms of 2-year-olds turning 3 next week. But our attention this week on It's Official, as we find 5 topics around the world to make official this week, begins in the Far East. And the Orient Express, we go back to Sha Tin in Hong Kong over the weekend, where the Hong Kong international races were held. There was a lot of ballyhoo and hype about a couple big horses on the card. One didn't deliver in the mile, but Romantic Warrior certainly did in the Hong Kong Cup.
McDonald hooks to the outside now with Romantic Warrior, and Russian Emperor is next. Panther Lasser headed by Car Ying Star. Money Catcher, Romantic Warrior, he's travelling sweetly as he claimed the other pair. Tourbillon Diamond next, and then came Denon the Kid. But Romantic Warrior, he's well clear in the Hong Kong Cup. He's 3 lengths over Money Catcher, Denon the Kid. He is the perfect racehorse, Romantic Warrior, and he's now a Hong Kong Cup winner. Romantic Warrior by 5 for James McDonald.
That's the way you want to do it in a big signature race on a signature card like that. There was no doubt about it. Disappointment earlier in the card that I mentioned, Golden 60, the 2-time horse of the year in Hong Kong, was defeated on the undercard in a race where there really was no undercard, grade 1s up and down throughout it. But let's talk about this winner here of the Hong Kong Cup, Jeff. And where do we compare and what do we do with Romantic Warrior in a world scheme? In Hong Kong, obviously, in the provincial island, fantastic racehorse. And he's really taken the mantle now from the 7-year-old Golden 60. Golden 60's kind of passed the baton. This is the horse in Hong Kong now. What do you make of the winner, Romantic Warrior, in the Hong Kong Cup?
See, that's what we're trying to figure out here. Romantic Warrior is a provincial horse. He's winning in Hong Kong. He's won 9 out of 10 lifetime races. He's a gelding, so he'll run for as long as he's sound and capable of doing it. And he's an exciting horse, and 1.25 miles or approximately in 1:59 and 3, very fast time over very firm ground. How do you evaluate him, Jeremy? I've tried to do some research to figure out, is this really a really good horse, or is he just a good horse because he's racing in Hong Kong? Right. And I've come to the conclusion based on who beat who, and I've used Racing Post ratings to compare because they do rate those races in Hong Kong. This is a good horse. I mean, he can run with anybody. I'm going to give you an example. Racing Post, which is kind of like their DRF a little bit overseas in England, they rate all these foreign races, and they rated this race, gave him 128 rating. Okay, that's nice. What does that mean? Right. Well, to give you an idea, Order of Australia, when he won the Breeders' Cup Mile a few years back, he got a 119 Racing Post rating. Rebels Romance, when he won this year's Breeders' Cup Turf at Keeneland, got a 124 rating. Okay. So that's still 4 points, whatever that means. Is right. Less than what our Breeders' Cup Turf winner won. And Golden 60, you mentioned him, 2-time horse of the year. On his best day, he only earned a 129. So this horse, Romantic Warrior, right. He's already right there with just 10 starts. He also he has beaten the horse that beat Golden 60 over there. So that's pretty impressive, I thought. I mean, it wasn't like he was beating a bunch of bumps. And, Order of Australia was in this race and nowhere. So I'm telling you, I think Romantic Warrior is the goods. I'd love for him to be able to match up with some of our best horses down the road. I don't think it'll be in the United States. Maybe Dubai. Who knows? I mean, it's why wouldn't he go there? He's a gelding. He's going to try to earn as much purse money as he can. He doesn't need any prestige. It's not going to help him as a sire, but good horse, really, really good horse, and I hope to see more of him.
I think Dubai's probably that middle ground, right? Just geographically and just on the world stage, because that's where Japan has gone to prove itself. Mm-hmm. And Japan racing for decades was provincial, right? And the great horses from Japan, you wouldn't give them much chance when they stepped outside of Japan. But it took generations and years of breeding. Right. They're doing a lot in Hong Kong with bringing in stock from around Europe. Mm-hmm. Mick Kinnan was the guy who found this horse at the sales, I believe at the Tattersall sales I read, who found Romantic Warrior. Of course, Mick Kinnan, the former great Irish jockey and rider throughout Europe. So, more European influence on the Hong Kong racing and more European horse flesh will increase the stock there and make those horses better when they go on the world stage. We'll have to see maybe in Dubai. You think back to Silent Witness is probably the most well-known Hong Kong horse, and this was just a sprinter. Silent Witness was, phenomenal. Won the first 16 races of his career. Didn't lose many by the time it was all said and done. But when Silent Witness went to Japan, he got beat a couple times in Japan. So that was even a step up from where Hong Kong was. And now we know Japan's up here on the international, I should say, world stage. So I think Hong Kong still has a little ways to go overall as a program. To get to that elite level, but that doesn't mean there can't be an elite horse here, right? I mean, we had a horse from Parks win 2/3 of the Triple Crown, and we had a horse who couldn't get out of his way at Turfway, just win the Kentucky Derby this year. Right. Good horses can't come from anywhere, as the saying goes, and no doubt a good one here. In Romantic Warrior, just how good on the international stage he's going to have. I don't think there'll be enough international horses go to Hong Kong. It was nice to see Order of Australia. It was nice to see Pantaloos, the horse from Japan, who had won in Dubai previously in this race. But you're not going to get a deep enough field to get a real good feel on this horse over and over of international horses until he travels probably outside the continent. So looking forward to seeing the Orient Express, as Jeff dubbed him, that being Romantic Warrior. Just one loss now. And lightly raced, right? This is the end of the 4-year-old year for this horse and only 11 starts. So the future could be really bright. They've got the gelding, like you said, and we might get to see this one a lot down the line. We'll see where we see Romantic Warrior next. Let's move our topic this week to the courtroom, if you will. Court TV, as we have here on It's Official this week. I mean, I don't know which Nancy Grace is going to come in here or not, but Jason Servis is out of service right now. He pled guilty earlier this week to the wire fraud and charges brought by on the FBI wiretaps of the race doping scandal that implicated 31 different individuals. I think 23 of them now have put in guilty pleas, the last of which being Jason Servis. Does this punctuate the story now? Is this the end of it? It's not a drawn out trial where there's a question of what happened. There were admissions of what was going on that were wiretapped. There's a plea of guilt here. It's fair season, I would say, to tee off on Jason Servis now. I mean, I know a lot of us walked on eggshells for years with Jason Servis, right? I mean, you saw his horses doing unearthly things. And I even saw Graham Motion tweet something like, I don't wish any ill will upon anybody, but this guy had cheated us and the trainers in the game and stuff like that. Trainers knew he was cheating. The public knew he was cheating. I think the stewards knew he was cheating, but nobody could catch him because of the biological type, biochemistry type things that were necessary to do so. It ended up being good old fashioned investigative police work and the FBI wiretaps that ended up catching him admitting to a lot of this stuff that he was doing. We still don't have a positive test on his horses, right? I mean, he's had positives in racing, but nothing that would get him, banned from the sport. Where do you stand now with Jason Servis headed to the big house?
Well, all I can say is it's a good thing that I wasn't the judge, or am not the judge. I'd have given him. I mean, I think the most he can get is 4 years. and that's probably in due in no small part that he did plead guilty, although originally he didn't. But I think he saw the handwriting on the wall. So even at the end, he was back, put into a corner where he had to plead guilty. So, he's never going to be a trainer again. He's 65 years old. He'll spend as many years as they feel it deserves to be in jail. Got to give up a lot of money, but I don't think that's a big deal. It's kind of angry. I mean, I'm not kind of angry as anybody who feels that over the years they have been cheated, not necessarily by Servis, but by other guys who are still out there cheating. Let's face it, and haven't been caught yet. And I think maybe what is, on the other hand, you mentioned, this is good old fashioned, law enforcement that got him with the wiretap. There are other guys out there that I know, everybody knows are still taking an edge. Maybe not as big of an edge as Servis did, but they're out there pushing the envelope and then past it, really. So I hope that, that's one of the reasons why I would have wanted a longer, jail sentence or whatever, because maybe, I don't know, but maybe it would have given somebody else a little bit of a second thought if they thought they would try to cheat. But it's disturbing. It's not good, but I'm glad it happened because, like you say, we knew it was happening. You and I are handicappers. We know when a result or a performance is over and above what it should be.
Right. But
you can't prove it. You have to prove it. Otherwise, you just can't say, I think you're cheating, so, can't do it. But they nailed him, and that's good. And hopefully, this is they'll catch the others that you and I suspect. How they'll do it, I don't know, but we're never going to be 100% clean. I know that, but at least there's a small victory at least this month.
Yeah, and to keep our street cred as writers, as analysts, and when everybody around you knows what's going on as well, the wink, wink. You have to protect yourself as a publisher of content that you can't say things that would, incriminate somebody unjustly, that would pull you into it. And all of a sudden you've ruined your career for saying something that's obvious, but not proven. For years I called guys like Jason Servis the Black Hatter, and you'll see he's a black hatter. He's a black hat villain, like the old movies, right? The bad guys always wore black hats or in the cartoons. And for years, if you go back to Countdown to the Crown through the whole run for Maximum Security back in 2019, I probably called Jason Servis a black hatter 10 times, and it's just because you want people to kind of know what's going on, but you can't. We're not the courts, right? And so, yes, there's a court of public opinion, and that's fine for the general public. But when you're the media, you have to have something backing up your accusations like that. And so it put a lot of people like us and our colleagues in a tight spot. Now, I would say this, you don't go around and pump a guy like that up, right? I mean, to go interview him and do puff pieces on him and stuff like that, that drives me crazy when I see that in horse racing. When somebody absolutely is on the cheat or has been nailed at the cheat in the past and they're back in racing now, enough of the puff pieces. That stuff can't happen. But you cover their horses. They're legally allowed to run, and that's fine. But don't blow these guys up who have gone sideways with any bit of decorum when it comes to playing a straight face in the game. Now, when we talk about Jason Servis, his next step is the Hooskow. They will give his sentencing on, I believe, May the 18th, and we'll find out just how long he'll spend in jail. The fallout from that takes us to our third topic this week, security and exchange, you called it. What do we do with Maximum Security now, Jeff? This is a horse who in 2019 ran first across the wire in the Kentucky Derby, disqualified from that, but he ended up winning the Eclipse Award that year as champion 3-year-old. He also won the Saudi Cup the next year with a $20 million purse, $10 million to the winner. The Saudis never paid it out. I mean, let's not put them on any sainthood anyway, the Saudi government, right? So let's just start with that. We'll put a black hat on them and we'll wink and we'll hope that we're all safe for saying so. But with the Saudis, they never paid the purse out. And now there's a story in the media where the West, Gary and Mary West, the owners of Maximum Security, say they are fine. Now that Jason Servis has pled guilty to this, they are fine with the purse being completely redistributed and their horse being disqualified from the Saudi Cup. So That's quite a statement they've made there. $10 million, the winner's share. That would make Midnight Bisou the winner of the Saudi Cup, add $6.5 million to her $7.5 million career earnings. She go up to $14 million, Jeff. If this turns out the way it looks that it might, Midnight Bisou will be the fourth richest horse based in the U.S. in history, only behind Arrogate, Gunrunner, and California Chrome. The connections of Midnight Bisou, which include a couple different ownership groups, could be getting a very huge present in the near future.
Yeah, and of course they sold that mare at auction, so that's, who knows, maybe they would have gotten more at auction if she had actually won that race. I mean, originally, not to mention the money. The money will get there, I'm sure. It's nice that Gary West says that they should release the funds. I mean, he doesn't really have a whole lot of say in the matter, and I'm sure he's got it's a politically correct statement, but it's an obvious statement,
Yeah.
So, that is true. And the Saudis, and now we're talking about, they have been withholding this purse since it was run. Was it 3 years now?
2020, so it'll be 3 years this spring, yeah.
Yeah, right, almost, yeah. So anyway, so that's for those people that are, looking for their money to worry about, not necessarily us. But I think between you and I, and we're kind of caught in the historical part of this, and how do you now evaluate Maximum Security? I mean, looking back, does he deserve to retain the Eclipse Award as owners and the horse himself? I'm sure the horse doesn't care, but I mean, the idea is, should he remain the Eclipse Award champion 3-year-old in 2019, or should they pull a Reggie Bush and take it away from him,
right?
And and give it to whoever else you think is deserving? How do you feel about that? I have my opinion. I want to hear yours first.
Well, when it comes to an award, if you want to vacate it, I don't necessarily have a big problem with that, because awards are just handouts, right? When you get into purse reallocation, it starts to go, well, if you're going to reallocate the purse for that one, why not this race? And why not that race? And why not this one? And why not the starter allowance and maiden claiming races he won back to start his career, Maximum Security? So you get into a whole different can of worms, and you've got a lot of different jurisdictions that would have to rule on that, right? He ran at Gulfstream, he ran in Kentucky, he ran, in New Jersey, he ran in Saudi Arabia. So you get a whole lot more questions when you talk purse redistribution. When you're talking about awards, if you want to pull it away, I think that's something with the Eclipse Award voters that they could, within their group. I'm not a part of it, never have been. If they want to, within their turf writers group and turf publicists group, get together and decide what to do, and as a body say we're going to, withhold the 2019 Eclipse Award from Maximum Security, I wouldn't have a big issue with that. The horses behind him in the voting, Omaha Beach got 16 votes. I had to go back and look this up, and 8 votes for Country House. Those two combined for 24 votes. 217 of the votes went to Maximum Security. So do you just take the next horse in the vote tally and give it to Omaha Beach? Do you open it back up and try to create some kind of publicity stunt now where we're going to revote the 2019 Eclipse Awards? That I'm not sure about how you move forward with it. But if they want to give it to somebody else, I don't have a problem with it at this point.
I think they probably should take it away from him, because he didn't earn it fair and square. And you might say, well, it's just a trophy, who cares anyway? But there are implications with, I think it probably shouldn't be this way, but I think the implications with regards to the stallions and what they're worth and what they can stand for and what their yearlings might bring and things like that. It's nice to say, for example, if you liked Omaha Beach, and he certainly had a resume that was
he did.
terrific, you might be able to say, son of champion 3-year-old. It's just, everybody knows that it's not something that it has to be done, but I think it would. You want to try to write as many rights as you can, and if a horse has won a race. I remember Ben Johnson and the Olympic sprinter from Canada in the 88 games. I mean, he won the gold medal, and he had to give it back, I think. So it maybe is symbolic more than anything else. But, hey, I don't think he deserves it, not based on what I saw. So
It's kind of funny too. The society we live in, there's a lot of this relitigation of the past and things that go on, whether you stand on one side of the fence or another. And then there's also the sarcasm that goes with that. That Reggie Bush is doing Wendy's commercials, making fun of him getting getting the Heisman Trophy taken away from him. Right? I mean, Wendy's is going to give him a cheeseburger to make up for the Heisman that somebody took away from him. I mean, it's like tongue in cheek anymore, for some of these kind of things. So if you were to, reallocate the Eclipse Award for 2019, there'll be a faction that says this is the right thing to do, and then there'll be a faction of the fan base and the public that just shrugs the shoulders and says, that it's just a joke, at this point, and kind of like the whole Reggie Bush thing. I was going to show the replay of Maximum Security's Kentucky Derby, Jeff. You asked me for it, and I pulled it up, and I was ready. I had to watch it back to make some edits on it and stuff, and it still pisses me off. I mean, I just got to say it. I mean, I haven't watched that race probably in 3 years, since the Derby of 2019. I was let it be known, I was disqualified out about $20,000 in winnings. I had a massive exacta and a massive trifecta that came off the board. It was 720, right? I remember the numbers because I told them for everybody who texts you, Kentucky Derby, you're getting all the texts, right? From everybody that you haven't heard from in years. I just told everybody 720. I said, if this thing's 720, we own the world, right? Of course, they run 720. Country House runs second behind Maximum Security 7. So I've been upset about it for years about the DQ, but I kind of, in my mind, I gave in and said he did commit the foul, so he should come down. But I'll be damned, Jeff. I watched the race again this morning, editing this video for you, and I'm not so sure he should come down. In fact, I'm going to play it back right now because watch this on the turn. I mean, there have been a million muggings in Louisville that have never been disqualified. This one came down.
Is wide on the turn, beginning to pick up his stride near the back of the pack. But Maximum Security continues to lead the way. Midway on the far turn, he's a length and a half in front. War of Will is second. Long Range Toddy third, and 4 wide and moving up is Country House's Pony Express plummets through the field. And here comes Code of Honor, and he bursts through an opening on the inside of Maximum Security, and they're into the stretch. Country House on the outside. Code of Honor down toward the rail. Maximum Security keeps on fighting. War of Will is there too as they come to the final furlong. It is Country House on the outside. Maximum Security so dead game. He keeps battling on. Maximum Security. Country House 1-2 down to the line. Maximum Security wins the Kentucky Derby.
720. Leave it up.
Let me tell you something. I mean, I didn't want to open up old wounds here, but there is absolutely no way that horse should have been disqualified for what he did in that race. Now, if you knew that he was enhanced, maybe, you can figure.
That's
but
why
here's
I picked
the thing,
him.
as a gambler.
That's why I picked him.
Right. Well, as a gambler, you didn't know he was getting juice. You picked him because of the form. You assumed the form.
I assumed he was getting juiced. I'll be dead honest with you. When Big Brown won the Kentucky Derby in 2008, I said to myself, all the stuff with Dutrow, you had your suspicions, everything like that, right? Just like we had talked about this. We can all talk about it and feel it, but you can't say it. I thought there's no way in the world a horse like this will win the Kentucky Derby because nobody would be brazen enough to try to pull something, right? But I underestimated Rick Dutrow and IEH and all those guys involved there because he ran through the wind in the Kentucky Derby. And from that point forward, I said to myself, if another horse like this ever comes around, I'm not going to be naive or I'm not going to be so sentimental about the Kentucky Derby because the competitors aren't sentimental about the Kentucky Derby. Yeah. A horse like that can win. And I figured that post Big Brown. And that's why I went with Maximum Security. And I thought he would run a kind of race like he did. Go to the front, run everybody into the ground, gas everybody, and then some long shot comes plugging along to run second or third at a big price, and Country House fit the envelope, and so that's how you get to something like that. Only when you can say to yourself, I just don't believe in the purity of it. I mean, to think that horse is going to wire the Kentucky Derby. And you saw the trip that he got. It was even tougher, right? He had to re-break at the top of the stretch and put 3 horses away. But that's how he won. That's how he did it. But that was not a DQ. But this is kind of goes back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier, right? you and I knew that there was something amiss with this Jason Servis stuff, right? Every handicapper in the world knew it. Racing jurisdictions knew it, and they were thumbing their nose at him because he was getting away with it.
Right.
They were not going to let him get away with the Kentucky Derby. If that would have been anybody other than Jason Servis, probably training maximum security, like you said, that is not a DQ. But that was a way for them to right the wrong. The door was open for the stewards to disqualify the horse for interference. And I tell you, in my heart of hearts, I truly feel they felt good about taking him down. Because I think they wanted him out of there, and they got him out. Turn it around. Bill Mott trains maximum security. Jason Servis trains country house. That DQ has a 0% chance of happening. 0% chance they're taking Bill Mott down in that same scenario. So I do think it played a part in all the history. And I guess when it's all said and done, karma has a way of coming back, right? I mean, the guy who got bit hardest on the ass for everything that happened here is going to prison in a couple months, 5 months from now. So
I think we both thought about Navarro the same way, So
yes, good riddance, right? I think everybody kind of looked at that the same way. So we will move on to some racing topics here. In topics 4 and 5, we get to the 2-year-olds. Last weekend was the Starlet Grade 1 race at Los Alamitos. The former Hollywood Starlet's been at Los Alamitos for the last several years, and Faiza was a big favorite in there for trainer Bob Baffert for him to win, I believe, his 6th straight victory in the Starlet. She had to work a little harder than people thought to get it.
Uncontrollable, picking up ground near the inside within 3 lengths of the lead. Some brushing in up a stretch between Pride of the Nile and Doing It the Hard Way. Meantime, Faiza looms up on their outside and puts her head in front. They're clear of Uncontrollable. Past the 8th pole, Faiza drifting in a little bit, has the lead narrowly from Pride of the Nile, who is dogged. It's Faiza from Pride of the Nile. Faiza by a head. Pride of the Nile's coming again. Faiza with Pride of the Nile. A stirring finish in the Starlet. Faiza from Pride of the Nile in a photo finish. They were 6 lengths clear of Uncontrollable and Doing It the Hard Way.
Well, Doing It the Hard Way was 3rd in the race, but the winner was Doing It the Hard Way, Jeff. Faiza, not as impressive as many would have thought going into it. Your takeaway?
Well, she was 50 cents in the dollar. So whenever you have a filly or any horse that is that short of a price, you kind of expect that if they win, it won't be life and death by a head. So from that standpoint, she didn't run quite as well as I think you and I thought she would. She'd only had that one prior win. It was a maiden win, but it was 6 furlongs. And she ran well that day, won easily. I'm not so sure she was completely there to go from a sprint to an easy sprint win to a tough 2-turn win against a more seasoned filly than she was. Pride of the Nile had 3 previous outings, 2 wins in her last 2, so she was more seasoned. The buyer number of 77 isn't anything outstanding. It's not terrible. It's kind of like okay. But I thought she showed some grit, took a bump at the top of the stretch and still found more. I sometimes you can be more impressed with a win that's, it has to show that you know how to win and can reach back for that reserve energy than if you go out by yourself and outclass everybody. So I'm not that harsh on it. I wonder, though, that if this might be the last year the Starlet's a Grade 1, because, I mean, none of you mentioned Baffert having won this race 6 times, but 6 in a row, actually, I think 9 overall. But if you look at those that have won this race, the previous 5, none of them ever came back to win another Grade 1. So, and this race is at Los Alamitos behind, in front of 500 people, whoever was out there, So I don't know whether this grading Grade 1 is long for this world. I mean, you and I maybe we both think that there's something special about winning a Grade 1, not essentially a non-winners of 2 at Los Al. I mean, there shouldn't necessarily be the same, but that's the way it is, and it's not the only one that you can put in that category. But I think she's still pretty good. I don't know if she's great, but she'll have that chance next winter.
The Starlet, of course, picked up upon the closure of Hollywood Park, 2014, something like that. It's living off its past, right? I mean, winners like Althea, Goodbye Halo, Serena's Song, Sharp Cat, that was a great era for this race, but it's gone now. There really haven't been. Blind Luck's probably the last truly, really good winner of the Starlet Stakes. And, Yeah, I mean, this race could be set for a downgrade anytime. You get into the, well, why is this a grade 2 and the Futurity at Los Al this coming Saturday is a grade 2? Why is one a grade 1 and the other one's a grade 2 when the Colt race has been much better in producing horses than the Philly race? But, you get into numbers of grade 1s, right? How many grade 1s are there for the 2-year-old fillies? How many for the Colts and what they're trying to do with the graded stakes program? But this race certainly could be downgraded next year. Would not be any surprise. We already know for 2023, the stakes races are set. The graded stakes committee's already ruled this year for next. Right. So they've got a free pass for 2023. They're not downgraded yet. But for 2024, the start of it could be in a bit of trouble. Let's take a look at one of our top 2-year-olds that we saw on the track last week. We're looking for our stars of tomorrow. It's our 5th and final topic each week here on the It's Official podcast. We go to the turf at Gulfstream Park back on December 10th. It was Sabaliato pulling off a victory and on the turf for Christophe Clement.
Royal Salute now up to challenge Harbor Moon for the lead. Into the clear, Spalliato 4 wide, and Jebby Interstellar is back for more inside. 3/16 to go, plenty of chances from between horses. Spalliato asked to kick by Tyler G with Harbor Moon alongside Jebby over the top. Spalliato, he's got the kick, and he's a winner on debut. Spalliato for trainer Christophe Clement wins by almost 2 in the end.
Jeff, this looks like a horse that had a little bit more left in the tank. The head wasn't completely up high, but certainly wasn't reaching down and asking for everything through the end, but kicking clear. This was a nice debut. What do you make of Sabaliato?
Well, they had a split of this race same day, a little bit later on, and this race was a full second faster. So if you're going by numbers, and that was good. He's by quality road. You figure a colt like this, why not start him on the dirt to find out if you've got a Derby horse? Because his pedigree is incredible. I mean, I think the mare was bought back, I think the mare was sold for like $3.9 million at Keeneland after this colt was foaled. So, but by quality road out of a Group 3 winning a mare named Cover Song. She was a European bred who actually won a stakes at Santa Anita. Second Dam by Galileo was a champion, produced U.S. Navy Flag, who was I think a champion or close to it. Another multiple grade 1 winning filly named Roly Poly, who was an outstanding racer. Yeah. Pedigree is unbelievable. So this colt's got a future, and it's not that unusual to see a Christophe Clement winner first time out going a distance to ground on grass. But you have to figure that his best is ahead of them. Yeah. And I think after getting the maiden broke, now there's nowhere to go but running on a stakes race. Wouldn't be surprised to see him show up at Tampa Bay on a stake. I liked it. I liked the race he won. He showed good tactical speed. He sat behind horses. He angled wide. He hit the front. He dug in. He galloped out well. I mean, there's nothing not to like other than the fact that it was on grass. But, I mean, I wouldn't mind owning him. I can tell you that.
Sabaliato means mistake in Italian. There was no mistake, though, with this debut. And it's also a drink that I read, Jeff, that the bartender made a mistake, and that made a Sabaliato. And that's what you ask the barkeep for, something out of my league. Let's talk about our bonus topic this week on It's Official. A little somber note this morning as we record on Tuesday the 13th. Likable and lovable college football coach Mike Leach passed away overnight, a coach at Mississippi State. If you watch this podcast or listen to it, Jeff and I are big college sports fans, UCLA, Oklahoma, respectively. We played in same leagues with Mike Leach, our teams, and have followed his career for years. He was actually, for 1 year in 1999, the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. He ended up recruiting a guy named Josh Heupel, who led the Sooners to the national championship. He recruited a guy named Jason White, who ended up winning the Heisman Trophy and played in 2 national title games. And he recruited a third quarterback in that one class at Oklahoma, Nate Hibble, who ended up winning a Rose Bowl at OU. So he had a short career crossing over where I got to see him up close with the Sooners. But certainly throughout his career, Leach was a guy who always was quick with the quip, deadpan with his storytelling, and somebody who was generally well liked by all. Your thoughts on Mike Leach and any experiences you had working or covering him?
No, I never. I mean, I've watched his teams forever because he had Washington State in the Pac-12 for a few years and watched him before then. And he was an innovator. I mean, he was a guy who took the old school, and it's amazing. You talk about Oklahoma and how they used to run the wishbone, and and then went this route when Mike Leach got there, completely opposite. But he changed the game. He really did. I know that, I mean, it's tragic that a relatively young man, and I can say that because I'm a lot older than 61, passed away in the prime of his career. So we send our sentiments to his family, but college football is going to miss him for sure. And he had a great coaching tree too. There were so many coaches that learned under him and coached under him, Lincoln Riley being one for sure, that are carrying on his his style of coaching, and that won't be forgotten for a long time. But it's just a sad thing for all of us who love the sport. And while we didn't know him personally, we certainly knew of him and watched him through the ranks.
Of the 4 Heisman Trophy finalists this year, 3 of them were coached by guys from the Mike Leach coaching tree that you had mentioned. He had a great influence. We were getting to thinking about Leach and talking about this a little bit earlier, and his personality and his quirks, made for great media, right? And as reporters and writers and broadcasters as we are, we're blessed with some of that in horse racing too. And so I was trying to think who in horse racing kind of has the Mike Leach persona, who's a little bit quirky, but absolutely intelligent, has the respect of his peers or her peers. And I came up with 2 people. I thought Jim McIngvale, the owner, of course, everybody knows Mattress Mac, as quirky as he is, he doesn't do things conventionally. He's kind of done things his own way. But in the end, it was questioned a lot at the beginning, but most people would say it's worked out pretty well for McIngvale in the end. The other being Michael Dickinson, the mad genius, as we call him. The British trainer who, he trained horses like DeHaas and Tappet, an innovator. We talk about Leach, changing the fabric, an innovator in the synthetic tracks. The Tapeta surface for Michael Dickinson changed his career from a racehorse trainer to, producing the Tapeta footings that are used at several racetracks around the country now. Quirky personalities, quick with a quip. So I thought McIngvale and Michael Dickinson were the 2 that I thought kind of get the Mike Leach trophy, if you will, in horse racing.
That's good.
Who have you covered over the years that kind of reminds you of Leach?
Well, it's hard because some people that I know have some of his traits, but not all of them. The one that I came up with for a couple of reasons was Bobby Frankel, who was an innovator as well. He changed the game. He changed his own game. He was a claiming trainer and decided that maybe be better off if I trained better horses and more expensive horses. And he did that. He's had people work for him, as Mike Leach did, that went on to greater things, for obviously Chad Brown being then. And Bobby was an outspoken guy, like Mike Leach too. I was a very good friend of his, and I actually went to Europe with him looking for horses one year, and took him over to show him horses. And I learned so much from him. If I wanted to be a trainer, that's the guy I would have wanted to work for. So a little bit of Frankel, but I think the guys that you chose too, for various reasons, other reasons perhaps, are similar as well. So we don't have that many outspoken, type of guys that we admire in this game, as we have discussed in this show. But
that's true.
There are a few that you look up to, and certainly I can see why college football people would look up to Mike Leach.
Mike Leach used to say, you could see it on the sideline, a little piece of paper folded up like this was his entire game plan. You see these other guys with a 2-foot takeout menu that's laminated both sides.
Denny's menu, yeah.
Everything he did was like on a piece of paper this size, and
right.
That's my format for the show today. I should have put it all on that little size paper though. In honor of Leach. But that's going to wrap up our discussion on horse racing, of course, our 5 topics on It's Official, and a little look into the college football world, as Jeff and I like to do, because there's one thing we spend time with, the important things in life, family and other things like that. But in our free time, It's horses in college football. I know. That's why Jeff and I get along so well. So when a story like this hits the major news wires on the day, we'll probably end up trying to work it in somehow. Hope you enjoyed our look down and our little bit of a tribute to Coach Mike Leach there. That'll wrap up our 5 topics this week on It's Official. They're now all official because Jeff and I said so. The Orient Express, we know the horse from Hong Kong over the weekend. That being Romantic Warrior, stacks up with some of the world's best. We'll hopefully see him head outside the country. The sign says we're out of service. Jason Servis going to be sentenced to perhaps up to 4 years in prison in May. Security and Exchange, should they switch the 2019 Eclipse Award for Champion 3-year-old away from maximum security in light of what we now know? The critics panned the Starlet. We wanted to see Faiza really deliver a big knockout. Yeah, she was just okay in victory in that one. And our stars of tomorrow looking ahead, put Sabaliato on your horses to watch on the turf or maybe the dirt at Gulfstream Park coming up this winter. Jeff, as I mentioned at the top of the show, we're 13 days away from opening day at Santa Anita in your backyard. We'll squeeze some holidays and family and fun in between them, but I know you've got a lot of work to do to get ready for the meet.
I do, and I also have to do it in between looking at the portal every 5 minutes, the transfer portal. If you talk about college football, we need some DBs and some linebackers, a quarterback, a running back, and an offensive line. Other than that, we're all set for next year. But I will be busy in the next 2 weeks getting ready for December 26th. What a glorious day of racing we will have here in Santa Anita and at Gulfstream as well.
On behalf of everybody with First Technologies, my partner Jeff Siegel, I'm Jeremy Plonk. Have a great week. We'll be back with you on Friday when we look ahead to the weekend stakes with our handicapping podcast coming up this weekend. We'll talk to you on Friday.